Kris, how did you discover X-Men?
My uncle who introduced me to video games.
Oh man.
He had a lot of, some comics. I think I started collecting them more than he did, and I've definitely fallen off the wayside for them. Like, I want to start collecting them again, but that's where it all started.
Okay.
I was like, oh, comic books are a thing. This is great. What is this? Superheroes. Look at this.
Ian says, Chris's legendary nerd uncle is the real MVP. Yes. Hashtag free Uncle Ricky.
Yes.
Yeah, my introduction to comics was Archie. And my grandmother had a bunch of the Archie digests that she would get presumably from the convenience store. And I read a ton of those. And at a certain point, like I stopped reading, and in grade 5, we had a fundraiser to help save the rainforest. And I decided to sell all of her books. And I guess on one hand, we helped save a chunk of the rainforest. On the other hand, I don't have any of those books anymore, and she passed away not long after. So that was like one of the big things she handed down to me, and I sold it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Those comics were actually some of the first ones that my uncle introduced me to them. And for years on my birthday, he would get me a year subscription to a couple of titles.
Wow.
And I literally have a couple of tubs of bins of Archie comics.
Nice.
In our eaves right now.
That's awesome. And Hanny says, my intro to comics was actually through a poet, believe it or not. Oh, you're going to have to tell us more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what poet introduced you to comics? And what context? Yeah, my modern run of comics was through Steph, who had more of an interest in reading. She bought... it was around the time of DC's New 52 and Marvel Now. Mm-hmm. So she bought like the issue 1 of Suicide Squad. And then when we decided like, all right, let's go read comics, we ended up buying like the giant omnibuses of DC and Marvel. And it was like, here's issue 1 of everything DC and everything Marvel in this current run. And
that is awesome.
They were all being cleared out. So like, it was pretty cheap. And it was, here's the starting point for every major superhero. Read through it, pick the ones you want, like that we wanted to continue with. And of those, one of the standouts, like X-Men, I was going to do because I loved X-Men from the cartoon. But the standout for me was Wonder Woman. And that Wonder Woman New 52 run is quite possibly my favorite comic run.
That's awesome. I want to read more comics. We don't have the room for them as much as I would like.
That's what ended up, I mean, a couple of things stopped me from reading comics. Like one, they take up a bunch of space. The big one was cost, where if you want to keep up every week, it's like $4 or $5 at least Canadian, $4 or $5 an issue. You're going to the store every week, you read it, and then it's like, well, 5 minutes later, I'm done with this. Now what do I do? And then you're waiting for the next week, the next month. Or then you're reading like 10 different series at the same time, which I've also done. And then all of a sudden you're like $30-$40 a week and you got like an hour of entertainment. And I'm like, is this the best use of my money? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And same thing with like the library. Like maybe I could check them off from the library, but even then I could just go in there, read it in 5 minutes, and then there we go.
Yeah. Ian says, the only comic series I've read consistently are the Avatar Last Airbender comics. I have not read those.
That's a series I always hear about, and I've never, I know what it is about, I know what it is, but I've never read or seen anything on it.
Okay.
And Handy actually mentioned the poet was William Blake, a romantic era poet known for printing his comics with images that help tell the overall story. That sounds really interesting. I'll have to look that up, too.
All right. Of the modern comics, the only one I guess I kind of keep up with, I only buy the book. I haven't read. I'm not fully caught up, but I guess I have time because they're on hiatus. I read Saga, and that is by Brian K. Vaughan, who's probably my favorite comic writer. He's also he wrote like at least one Wolverine story. He was a writer on the show Lost. And he also did a couple of other series called like Paper Girls and We Stand on Guard. And yeah, Saga is so good. It's like, and Hanny says, I love Saga. I'm all caught up. It's fantastic.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet, though.
I think it's really good, but Kris, I don't know if it would be your cup of tea in light of your like PG ratings, because it's definitely it has moments of not being that.
Okay. Thank you for the warning. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But it is very good if you ever do decide to check it out. I'm just giving you the warning in advance. You might see some stuff you may not want to see. But it's basically like if you took Romeo and Juliet and Star Wars and mashed them together.